I have been following American presidential elections for a very long time. Right from the election into office of a peanut farmer from Georgia called Jimmy Carter in 1976, who incidentally took over from a very interesting president, President Gerald Ford, who still has the distinction as the only American president in history never to have been elected. Yes, he took over the presidency after Nixon resigned in 1974 over the Watergate scandal, and Ford had been appointed barely a year earlier before he took over as president. He had been appointed vice president after the resignation of that vice president, and therefore Ford was never elected either to be vice president or to be president. He was just appointed, and then barely a year later, pop, president. No election. And he then went on to lose the election in 1976 to Jimmy Carter. Anyway, from Carter to Reagan to Clinton, etc., right up to the current presidential elections. And then I have read very widely on all the other presidential elections in the history of the United States. And I can tell you without doubt, there has been no other presidential election in the United States like this current one. Never, ever. And therefore I can confirm, for those following the first American presidential election, this one is not normal. In fact, it is extremely abnormal. What stands out most for me is the fact that the American press has been telling us lies. It has been proven beyond any doubt that the press that I respected so much, more than any other press in any other nation in the world, the American press, is really a propaganda press. Nothing more. Because all analysts who believed this press and were analyzing the American presidential elections based on what this mainstream American press was saying have now all ended up with egg on their face. Because they made us believe that Joe Biden was going to win by a landslide. And so, how did we end up with such a close presidential race? How? What happened? And I'm talking about very respected mainstream media, CNN, etc. And even now, many of you will have noticed, if you're following the American elections, using those media houses, you will have immediately noticed there's something very wrong. And indeed, there's something wrong, very wrong, with these elections. And I will come back to that later. You know, years ago, when I was starting out in journalism, and I was studying media houses very closely, because I intended to own one, one day in the future, somebody told me something that I brushed off. They told me, Chris, the American media relies too heavily on advertising, and therefore, that cannot be a free media. Forget about it. It is not an independent media because it relies too much on advertising. My response, rubbish. I totally trust the American media. Very high journalism standards. Get out of here. What you're telling me doesn't make sense. Well, the year 2020 has been a year of massive education. For me, actually, very bitter education. It's like you want to get married to this girl, very innocent looking. And then a few years into that marriage, you realize, oh, This is not that innocent girl that I trusted so much. And by then it is too late, because you totally and completely trusted her. You feel cheated and let down. You see, the American media have been competing to show the world that President Donald Trump is the worst thing that has ever happened to the American presidency. Yeah, and they have succeeded big time. Even I was fooled for a very long time. And now we have to ask ourselves another question. Yeah, and I believe a much more important question. Why would some people be so desperate to get rid of Trump, and powerful people at that, that they would be willing to sacrifice the trust that their customers, to their media houses have in their media houses, that they'd be willing to sacrifice all that to remove Trump from office? Because a media house without trust ceases to exist. It may continue to exist as an organization, but it becomes nothing more than a public relations subsidiary or a public relations arm of an organization. Nothing more. A media house, even if it's short of money, will continue to exist for a long time, as long as there's trust from the audience, because they'll find a way of raising revenue. Folks, there's something very wrong with these presidential elections. In basic journalism training, when you get into a situation where somebody is very aggressively and desperately trying to sell you a certain rhetoric, a certain narrative which they're pushing down your throat, then as a seasoned journalist, you know something for sure. And that is, there is a very big story, very big, and it's on the other side of this narrative. That is basic journalism training. And so if you care for the truth, the story is on the other side, for sure. And now we are hearing from the other side that there's rigging. Now hold your horses for a minute. Please remind me what country we're talking about. This must be some banana republic in Africa. Just imagine for a minute if I told you about 2 years ago that a presidential candidate in these United States of America will claim massive rigging. You would have told me, Chris, please, you need to get your head examined. Chris, this time you have lost it. That's what you'd have told me. But if you want the truth, you need to listen to both sides. And even if you still believe that a person with absolutely no brains can get elected to become the president of the United States of America, the most powerful nation in the world, even if you still believe that, put it aside for a while and examine closely what Trump is saying. He is saying things were going okay, and then there appears to be an effort to delete some of his success in the elections. And when you take a closer look, you see some strange things, which are difficult to explain. Especially if you've been following presidential elections closely, the results, since Jimmy Carter. And I'm persuaded in the next few days, we will see some shocking revelations. Revelations that will be unbelievable, difficult to grasp, impossible to digest. The lesson to take away here is that we have all been brought up to believe that evil started in Africa. And to date, the most evil, the epicenter of evil, is Africa. The continent where an incumbent president steals an election shamelessly. The continent where a dictator murders his opponents and murders innocent people simply for questioning his policies and authority, his stolen authority. Well, if you open your eyes for a minute, that can't be true. But now you don't even need to open your eyes, because it is right before you, very easy to see, that actually evil exists all over the world. Wherever you find human beings, there is evil cooking somewhere. Sometimes it's never exposed, but sometimes it is. And politics has always been a very dirty game. All over the world, not only in Africa. And maybe the only difference between the dirt in Africa and the dirt in very developed Western countries is the table manners. Yeah, our evil here may have lacked table manners. But now we are seeing for the first time the evil in the West has even surpassed our very bad table manners that we're known for in Africa. Because every human being has weaknesses. We all have our weaknesses. But then you spend 4 years destroying the reputation, highlighting only the weaknesses of an elected person. That is inhuman. And that's not all. You go to extremes. It becomes a full-time occupation. In other words, you have nothing else you're doing. You clear your desk completely to focus on this one evil thing, as if you're perfect yourself. Yeah? But now we can see how this has really helped some people. Because during an election like this one, when that person you have been mudslinging over the years says something, it is very easy for you to respond with something like, this man is just so desperate to hang on to office. He is so desperate, he will say anything. He will do anything not to lose the presidency. And people will actually believe you. They'll actually believe what you're saying is true. No wonder somebody predicted a long time ago that we are now living in the age of deception. Massive, widespread deception. Now, don't get me wrong. As an analyst, I don't have the luxury of supporting any presidential candidate. But surely, if you want to win an election, why don't you win it fair and square? Win it in such a way that even if your opponent is a madman, they will not be able to contest it. And even if they do, the votes you have received will speak for you. Not this kind of situation where you've been busy for years, completely destroying a man, and it seems that doesn't even work. And you go into an election, and some dodgy, fishy things start happening. I urge you all, to take in all the information you receive carefully, and listen to both sides, and think, and remember, the real epicenter of evil is not Africa. Indeed, when it comes to evil, the Mzungus are in a class of their own, as we have now seen very clearly.
Kindly allow me a quick reminder. If you are watching this, and you are yet to be a subscriber to this channel, packed with content that is difficult to find anywhere else, please remember to subscribe. And hit the bell button so that you get notifications. I would also like to point you to another Trump video on this channel. It is titled, Trump to Kenyan President, Help Me Keep Out Kenyan Migrants from USA. Use the link that you see appearing on the top half of your screen now. The same link can also be found in the description area below this video. Thanks for watching.
Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.